If you're planning a trip to Banff in September, you're in for something truly special. This is the month when the air turns crisp, and if you time it right, you'll witness one of the Rockies' most magical events, the golden larches lighting up the mountainsides. But there are a few important things to know so you can make the most of your visit without being disappointed. Before we get into all the reasons I love September in Banff, I've got a freebie for you. My Banff and Area Restaurant Guide. It covers Banff, Canmore, Lake Louise, and Jasper with links to menus and Google Maps so you can find the best places to eat. You can grab it at travelbanffcanada.com/support. I'm so excited we've made it to September. I know I've veered off my regular schedule by doing September so early, but I've gotten so many requests for the September podcast. I wanted to get the information out there to help you plan. Plus, I love talking about September. I know, I say I love every month, but honestly, September is my favorite month in Banff. Don't get me wrong, September in Banff doesn't die down like it used to, but you can still find things to be a little quieter, especially midweek. The weather can be all over the place, but you can get some really fantastic warm days. The lakes are still their magnificent turquoise color, and the best part is that fall colors start to show up. Before we get into what to expect in September, I need to explain larch season because you're going to hear me say it a lot. If you've seen photos of bright golden trees in Banff in September, you're looking at larches. These are a unique type of conifer that, unlike pine or spruce, drop their needles in the fall. But before they do that, the needles turn a stunning golden yellow, creating some of the most spectacular mountain scenery you'll ever see. Larches thrive at elevations between 1,800 to 2,400 meters, so you're going to need to hike to reach them. The peak season for this color change is pretty short. It's often just 7 to 10 days in and around late September, early October. Some years it comes earlier, some later, depending on the weather. The needles on the larch trees typically start to turn around the third week of September and can still be golden yellow into the first week of October. But again, every year is different. So let's get into that September wild card, the weather. September is definitely the time when you can feel like you experienced all four seasons in one day, and you're very likely to encounter snow at higher elevations sometime in the month. In early September, it can feel like summer. Daytime highs can reach 18 to 20 degrees, even up to 25 degrees if you have a really warm September. And the mornings are crisp, but definitely manageable. As the month goes on, mornings get colder, and it's not uncommon for it to dip below freezing overnight by mid-September, especially high up in the mountains. By late September, there's a real chance of waking up to frost or even a dusting of snow on higher trails. But don't worry, it's often just a dusting and melts by midday. What I love about this time of year is that the weather creates these incredible contrasts. Warm sun during the day, cool air in the shade, snow-capped mountains, golden larch trees. It's really stunning. But you've got to be ready for anything. You'll want to go beyond just a fleece or a warm sweater and maybe pack a light down jacket for warmth. We'll get more into packing later. Now, what's open in September? What can you do? Just like the summer months, nearly everything remains open throughout September with some exceptions. You've got full access to Lake Louise and Moraine Lake. Canoe rentals are still running and all the hiking trails are accessible, unless of course they've been closed due to bear activity. Gondolas and chairlifts are still running, but the Lake Louise gondola is closing on September 1st this year, and the last day for the Sunshine Gondola is September 21st. Mount Norquay chairlift will still operate until October 12th, and the Banff gondola runs all year long. Popular tours like rafting, river floats, horseback riding, and even the Via Ferrata are still running, but be aware that some will stop operating mid to late September, depending on demand and weather. The eastern section of the Bow Valley Parkway is closed again, which is a big win for cyclists or anyone who wants to enjoy this section of the road car-free. Don't worry, you can still visit Johnston Canyon. So, if you're coming at the beginning of September, you've got everything. But by the end of September, you may find some tours and activities starting to slow down. A lot can depend on the weather. So, how should you spend your time in Banff in September? This is obviously the most important part, and there's really so much to do in Banff in September. You can do all the regular sightseeing around Banff, Jasper, Yoho, and Kootenay National Parks. If you're coming around the third week of September, I highly recommend you leave some time for a larch hike or two. If you want to visit Moraine Lake and hike the famous Larch Valley Trail, one of the best larch hikes around, you'll need to plan ahead on how to get to Moraine Lake. The Parks Canada shuttle will continue to sell out, especially at that time. Typically, Rome Transit runs a Route 10 direct to Moraine Lake in September, but it appears that this won't be happening in 2025, which is really unfortunate. So you'll want to grab my Moraine Lake shuttle guide to help you understand the shuttle system and what's available. I'll leave a link to it in the show notes. Here are more of my recommendations for what to do in September around Banff. Lake Louise and Moraine Lake still must-see iconic lakes. You can still canoe, hike to the tea houses at Lake Louise, or take in the views. By late September, much of the activity at those two lakes will shift to larch hikes. Both of these lakes have some of the best larch hikes around, like Larch Valley at Moraine Lake or Saddleback Pass at Lake Louise. But those aren't the only places to see larches. There are some easier larch hikes in Kananaskis, like Ptarmigan Cirque at Highwood Pass. There are some other great options around Banff too, and I'll leave my larch hiking posts in the show notes so you can figure out which hikes make the most sense for your trip. Late September will also bring changing color to the trees in the valley bottom, so the aspens will turn a brilliant yellow. There are some really incredible views to be had at this time of year, and Kananaskis has some of my favorite fall hikes, and many of them are easy. I'll link to that post in the show notes as well. As with any time of year, but especially in September, be sure to check trail conditions and bear reports though, as this is peak bear season too. One of my other favorite things to do in September is cycling, both road cycling and mountain biking. Mountain biking amongst the changing fall leaves is really stunning, plus the cooler weather is ideal. The best road cycling options for this time of year are the Legacy Trail and the Bow Valley Parkway. I talked about the Bow Valley Parkway in episode 12, so you can listen to that episode for more information. But starting on August 28th until October 2nd, the eastern section of the Bow Valley Parkway, so from Banff to Johnson Canyon, will be closed to vehicles, leaving this section open to cyclists. You can rent e-bikes in the town of Banff and enjoy both an e-bike ride on the road and hiking Johnston Canyon. It's the perfect adventure in September. As you'll also hear in episode 12, you can still drive the entire western section of the Bow Valley Parkway, which also gives you access to Johnston Canyon, so don't worry about whether or not you can visit that. The Legacy Trail, which I haven't talked too much about yet, is a paved trail that runs between the town of Banff and the town of Canmore. If you're staying in Banff, you can make a full day's activity and ride to Canmore for lunch and some exploring. Just know that this path does parallel the highway, so it can be noisy at times, but the views are still great. And make sure you wear a helmet as it can get busy. Other things you can do in September are horseback riding. Banff Trail Riders runs horseback rides throughout September and into October. I mentioned the Via Ferrata for you adventurous ones. The guided climbs at Mount Norquay operate into October, and this is an incredible adventure if you like climbing ladders with jaw-dropping views. Lake Minnewanka Cruise is still running and a great way to explore one of Banff's largest lakes and get a different perspective. September is also a great time for exploring the towns and doing walks around the town. Banff and Canmore are stunning in the fall. Grab a coffee and stroll along the Bow River or Policeman's Creek Boardwalk in Canmore. You can also do Grassy Lakes for an easy hike or Quarry Lake for an easy walk in Canmore. Rome Transit Route 12 is still operating and it's free. I'll leave my post on Canmore walking trails in the show notes. I don't know about you, but I love scenic drives. The Icefields Parkway should be a little quieter and just as stunning, plus the Columbia Icefield Adventure with the Ice Explorer and Skywalk is still operating. For other scenic drives, you'll also want to explore the Lake Minnewanka Scenic Drive, which I talked about in episode 20. With the changing fall colors and mountain reflections on Tujack, it makes for some perfect scenery. And of course, the western section of the Bow Valley Parkway, so from Johnston Canyon to Lake Louise. You're going to love the fall colors on all of these drives later in September, and also keep your eyes open for wildlife. Gondolas are still a great thing to do in September. As I mentioned, you can enjoy the Banff Gondola all year long. The Sunshine Gondola will operate until September 21st, so you can head up there and do some hiking in Sunshine Meadows. And the Norquay Chairlift will operate throughout September and into October. As I said, unfortunately, it appears the Lake Louise Gondola is closing early, which is too bad because there are some nice, easy larch hikes up there. Don't forget about visiting the beautiful Emerald Lake and Takaka Falls in Yoho National Park. And for anyone looking for an easy walk and loves animals, the Yamnuska Wolf Dog Sanctuary east of Canmore towards Cochrane is worth a visit. It has beautiful paved trails throughout the facility, and you'll get to learn all about the wolf dogs. If you're looking for a unique experience, a helicopter ride over the Rockies at this time of year is pretty spectacular. We actually got married in late September in the peak of larch season and took our guests by helicopter to the location. Thankfully, we had amazing weather because we didn't have a backup plan. So there's a pretty quick overview of what you can do in September, but just know that almost all of the activities will still be up and running, and I'll include my full guide to Banff in September. I know that September gets pretty centered around hiking, and for good reason, but I also understand that this isn't for everyone, so I'll include my post on the best things to do for non-hikers. I know this podcast has been pretty focused on hiking, but just know that there are still so many other things to do in September in Banff, and the sightseeing is still going to be spectacular. Take in some easy walks and really enjoy those fall colors or even what feels like a warm summer day. And if you are visiting in late September and are able to, I do recommend getting in at least some easy fall hikes or a harder larch hike. Okay, so what do you need to pack for September? I'm a broken record. I know, but layers, layers, layers. You'll want to be ready for chilly mornings and warm afternoons. Waterproof hiking shoes or boots are always great, especially if you're doing some longer hikes. You probably still want to bring that fleece, but I would also add a light down or insulated jacket. You never know with rain, so pack that rain jacket. And of course, add in a toque. Wait, what did she just say? A toque is our Canadian word for a warm hat, and some gloves would be a great idea. Make sure you still pack a hat, sunscreen, sunglasses, reusable water bottle, and a day pack where you can put all your snacks and extra layers. Obviously, if you're doing any hiking, bear spray is a must. You can rent it if needed in the towns. And honestly, don't forget a swimsuit. You might want to relax at the hot springs or your hotel hot tub after a hard day of larch hiking. Okay, just a few final tips for my September travelers. Start early. Even in September's, mornings are your best bet for parking, quieter trails, and good light. Have a plan B. That larch trail you wanted to do, it might be closed due to bears or parking may be an issue. Be flexible and know what else is nearby. Book some shuttles. You'll want to plan in advance. The first part of September will still be busy, and then you get into larch season. The Parks Canada Lake shuttles and roam buses will stay busy throughout the month. Always be wildlife aware. Bears are busy trying to fill up for winter, so they'll have their heads down, busy eating. And we are right in the middle of elk rutting season. The male elk will be very aggressive at this time, so make sure you keep your distance. As always, you're going to want to watch for closures. You want to check trail and road updates before heading out. Trails can close due to bear activity, and you'll want to watch for weather conditions, especially if you want to head up the Icefields Parkway. This road has no cell service, and the weather can be worse along this road. One bonus is your sunrises and sunsets are easier to catch in September. Make sure to add in some time for those and also adjust your schedule to make sure you are done hiking before it gets dark. Finally, early September still feels busy, especially over Labor Day weekend and during peak larch season, but weekdays are quieter, and the later you get into the month, the more peaceful the trails will become. Now let's get into our listener question. What's the best weather forecast for the mountains? This is a great question, and everyone in the area probably has their own preferred weather forecast app or site. I personally use Environment Canada's weather forecast. In all honesty, none of them are going to be very accurate, but this is the one that I've found to be the closest. You really don't want to depend too much on the weather more than a couple of days out. It's likely to change several times over. Even for the current day, it can be way off. I was recently on a ride with a friend and we were chatting about if I should take my paddleboards on a trip up to Jasper since the forecast didn't look great. And she quickly reminded me of what I always say. You can't trust the forecast and you shouldn't chase the weather. So just know that I'm also guilty of this. But it's really important that you just come and enjoy your time and don't stress too much about those weather forecasts. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Banff Travel Podcast. If you got value from this episode, do me a favor, make sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss the next one. It's free, it helps the show, and it keeps you in the loop. If you'd like to support the podcast, I now have a page where you can say thanks, send a tip, or grab one of my downloadable guides, which you'll find at travelbanffcanada.com/support. And I appreciate every single bit of support. It helps me keep this going and helping travelers like you make the most of their time in the Canadian Rockies. And if you have a question you'd like me to answer in a future episode, head to banfftravelplanning.com/podcast and send it in. Until next time, happy trip planning, and I'll see you out on the trails.